Hello. Let's take a few minutes before the reading begins. First, I'd like to thank the English department, Chair Joe Carney, and Inc.'s president, Rebecca Suzanne, for sponsoring and promoting this event. Without their support, this event would not be possible. I would also like to thank the Writing Communities program for choosing the candidates, and also Professor Rao, who was just up here, for pulling the strings to get Gary Lutz here, and hopefully without too much complications in his travels. Gary Lutz grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, got his bachelor's from Kutztown University, and his master's degree from Ohio University. He published 3 collections of stories, Stories in the Worst Way, I Look Alive, and Partial List of People to Bleach. Currently, Lutz is a professor at Pittsburgh University in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and co-edits fiction for an online magazine, 5 Trope. Lutz's work can be categorized by a multiplicity of titles: short story, short story, poetry, or words on paper. But there's one category that Lutz specifically belongs to, as a writer of sentences. Lutz writes his sentences with the precision of a geneticist formulating the molecular framework of a creature soon to rise and wreak havoc upon the countryside. And rise it shall. For Lutz, sentences are the centerpiece to the art, acting as both a vessel for lexical experimentation and building blocks for narrative control. In a lecture given to Columbia University last year on sentences, he states, "The aim of the literary artist, I believe, is to initiate the process by which the words in a sentence no longer remain strangers to each other, but begin to acknowledge one another's existence and do more than tolerate each other's presence in their phrasing. The words have to lean on each other, rub elbows, rub off each other, feel each other up. The intimate acquaintance and sexualized relationship between one word and another get at a fundamental motif in the way in which Lutz's narratives play out. Many events just tend to happen. People gravitate towards one another. Diseases inflict main characters. Intimate partners break up and move away without premeditation or reason. Nor do they need a reason, because the primary tension is not played out in the relationship between 2 characters or a character and its environment. It's embedded within the microcosmic tension of a sentence. These astute attentions to detail and more are what make Lutz a valuable and distinctive member to this generation's literary community. It's with my great pleasure to introduce Gary Lutz.
Thank you, Steve, for that very kind and perceptive introduction. And thank you also to Jess for inviting me. I thought that what I would read is, first of all, a fairly early story that is somewhat more conventional in its narrative structure than my more recent work. And then I'll read something that is more recent and more language-driven. So the first story is called Education. Not long after my youth blew over, I was offered a stipend to help speed along the development of a girl who was being raised in one of the old walled towns in the northern part of the state. I signed the papers and gave away my things. The next morning, I said goodbye to some people I thought might recognize me from the corridors of the building where I had been living. A couple of the older ones unlimbered their limbs in a way that I regarded as a wave. It took me several days to reach the town on foot. The girl's mother and grandmother were waiting for me outside the gates. They were seated on a rock and eating fruit out of basins on their laps. "She's at home," the mother said. "We were told to keep her away from school." "How long does it usually take?" the grandmother said. Both of them were blunt-nosed and sleep-marked. They kept themselves busy with the fruits. They kept their eyes off mine. "Let me have a look at the girl," I said. 2. Every afternoon I walked the girl to the center of town. There were 8 streets that led to it, and for each approach to the 2 blocks of shops and vaguely public-looking buildings, I assigned the town a different name. Townville, Cityton, Burgborough, Townburg, Burrowville, Cityborough, Burgtown, and Town City.